right, there we go. Hey everyone, Richard Carlton here. Welcome to another great day of FileMaker training at fmtraining.tv. I'm the creator of fmtraining.tv, where you can learn all about the FileMaker platform and learn how to build better FileMaker applications for you, your customers, your organization. This broadcast is completely free to everyone and is being broadcast in high definition to Discord, YouTube, and to Twitch. This broadcast is being recorded, which is really great. Of course, we might clean up the recording a little bit, so if we make a malfunction during the live stream, then of course we reserve the right to clean that up on the recording later on. However, because it's a live broadcast, we encourage you to ask questions. In fact, some people get aggravated when there's this dialogue with you and we ask questions. We want questions. If you have a question, odds are other people have the question too. And so I want to thank everyone for logging in. Ken and TK and Dave One, Dave Learning, Ed, Elzo, Carol, Jake, Mike, all of you, welcome once again to another great broadcast. Now, as a reminder, if you want to check out the upcoming broadcast, go to fmtraining.tv, press the left tab for the live button. You can see the upcoming broadcast schedule. That's pretty awesome. Additionally, if you want to help support this channel, right? We always say this, this broadcast is brought to you by fmtraining.tv, bringing you the greatest and the most entertaining FileMaker training videos available. So the idea is that if you want to help support the channel, make sure you check out our on-demand video bundles. We have videos that cover the latest version of FileMaker. We have videos that cover the deploy course. In fact, we used to sell the courses individually. Anymore, it's just much simpler to sell a complete bundle for a low price. We do this on an annual basis. So if you buy one of the bundles, that really helps support the channel. It ensures that we can keep coming back every day, because this broadcast actually takes a lot of money to run. The people here don't work for free. So today is decidedly for beginners. So I want to say up front, there's this document here. I'm going to give you this Word file because it has a lot of links in here. And this is one of those documents where I've been doing FileMaker so long, 3 decades plus now. I'm starting my 4th decade, I guess. That I take everything for granted when it's broke. And I think sometimes it's good to sit back and understand where the beginners get hung up. And where this is really important is this section right here. So you're going to have customers who are going to want to build something. And you want to make sure as you're talking to the customer, okay, so I have a rule. Okay. I have a rule that never promise anything you haven't done. But that makes it really hard to learn new things. And so for those of you who like to promise things you've never done before, let me help you out a little bit here. And that is, I'm going to give you some areas where things are more challenging, and then areas that are easier to do because FileMaker is just so fundamentally good at them. And then other areas where it just hasn't got the love and attention, or maybe it's not even possible. Because really, like any tool, there's positives and negatives about the tool. FileMaker really, at the end of the day, is kind of like a pickup truck or a lorry or whatever you want to call it, a small truck. You got 3 or 4 people in the front. You got a bed in the back. You can load stuff in and drive it around. So a pickup truck or a truck is not a sports car. It's not a Ferrari. It's not a Lamborghini. It doesn't take 2 people and drive them 200 miles an hour. It's not a giant 18-wheeler, super large, 10-ton truck, 20-ton truck, however big it is, that can hold, pallets, forklift the pallets of supplies and drinks or beer for TK, right, in Germany. Because if it's, German beer time, then out comes the beer, right? And the sauerkraut and everything else you folks eat. I think that would be a lot of fun over there. So anyway, but that being said, FileMaker is this in-between tool. It's not super small and super fast. It's not big and ugly and gnarly, and you can drag the whole corporation with it. And so it's just in between. So what can you do with a pickup truck? Pretty much almost anything your business needs, which is kind of great. And so it's important to understand what the pickup truck does well and what it doesn't do very well. And that's kind of what today's conversation is about. So along the way, I want questions. Right? So we're going to come in there. For me, so Space Buckaroo says it's scripting difficulty. Those are all great topics. And I'm happy. And let's make sure, TK, let's make sure we come back. The web director is already in here. And And for scripting, that's kind of an all-over conversation. But I want to make sure we come back and we hit this. So up front, what I want to say is that before Kyle loses his mind, because he is here, is that Kyle Williams, is that the items were identified. We're not saying they're impossible or that Kyle cannot do them, because if I say they're hard to do, then I'm going to have 20 people going, I could do that. I'm the most amazing FileMaker developer ever, and I could do that. And it'd be like, I could name that tune. There used to be a game show. They'd play a song. I could name that tune in 2 notes or something, or 3 notes. I could do that in 5 minutes, right? That's not the point. The point is that if you're an advanced developer, I expect you to be able to compensate for most of the things here. And then if you use a plugin like Christian Schmidt's plugin for Monkey Bread, or Base Elements plugin, or a 360works product, you're going to compensate for a lot of other items, which is great. Really, that's why Claris has such a great ecosystem, the FileMaker platform, great ecosystem of all these people who are contributing and doing things and making it better. So, moving along here. This is not a comprehensive list. Let's start with things that we all just like for beginners. So when you're in writing a field calculation, you're in a calculation a diagram or dialogue, and you have the little list of functions and items on the sides, right? And then you have the calculation in the middle, right? And so what ends up happening is that FileMaker works very hard to make sure that as you put the code in, or you're writing this in there, it's checking the syntax and trying to give you little hints as to where things are right or wrong. It's not going to tell you that the formula is correct for what you want to do, but if the syntax is wrong, like in English, if I say something, the birds are flying tomorrows. The birds are flying tomorrows. And I like, something's wrong with that English, right? There's a right and a wrong in some areas. And FileMaker will try to give you a steer when your calculation is wrong, right? It'll say, oh, you're missing a parentheses or something like that. Where in other programming languages, to be honest with you, code, when you start doing low code to pro code, because FileMaker can do no code or low code or pro code, if you're missing one little period in PHP somewhere or JavaScript, the whole thing quits working. One little period or comma, one little thing out, even if it's in the wrong spot, one little spot, it won't tell you, it just fails to operate. FileMaker actually attempts to guide you along the way and say, hey, it's probably over in this area, or you have too many parentheses on this side or that side, whatever. So it's helpful. These are areas that FileMaker excels at. Adding and editing tables in flight. In flight means that it's on the server, other users are using it, you can still work on it at the same time. Now, people will say, oh, I don't recommend that. That's horrible. I want to do that. I would never add a field while users are using the database. Okay. I'm not talking about whatever little ethical routine that you've come up with or an area where you've had a problem with. I'm talking about, and not even really ethics, but I get people who treat this like a religion. The issue is that it will do it. It does it very seamlessly, and very rarely do you have a problem like in the old days. To add a field, you had to shut the FileMaker system down, quit hosting it, move the file, add the field, then put it back and turn it back on and test it and hope the hell it worked. We're way past those days, right? It allows you to do this stuff in flight, which is really great, okay? Record locking. I know we lost Margaret, or we lost Brian. Oh, we lost Brian. That's fine. Margaret, you're still there, yes?
Yes, I am.
Keep an eye on the questions for me if you can do that.
I am looking.
So, so record locking, right? Record locking. So this is the idea where you have many users in the system, and it locks a record. And record lock is the idea that only one person can edit a record at a time. I know that's a foreign concept for some of you, but the mechanics of this is that if, like in your pickup truck, only one person can drive the truck at a time, and you could have 12 people all wanting to grab the wheel, and there's only one seat and one wheel, only one person can do it at a time. And so the system has to gracefully allow one person to sit in, drive it, then step away, then another person sit in, drive it, and step away. And FileMaker does that automatically. In other systems, you have to actually code that. You have to code it to where it locks it or releases it or does all this sort of stuff. Now, you can code it in FileMaker with scripting. You get into a pro code where you have a record that's locked and no one else can edit it. And then you do some stuff, then you release it a certain way, right? You have that option. You have the flexibility. But out of the box, it does it for you. It's easy, super easy. So that should be like an easy with an all caps on it, right? Like super easy, right? Relational design. This is an area where it's hard to say where it's easy or hard. I would say it's generally hard because it's a little bit foreign concept for a lot of people to gather, except I've never seen it done easily. Claris has thought about this for 30 years, 20 years. They were like, how do we make it? They built the table, the relational diagram FileMaker 7. And ever since that time, I remember Rick Kalman being in a meeting with all the most smart people on the planet, and he going, how do we make this better? And everyone looked back at him going, duh. Now, I'm not a very smart guy, so no one expected me to come up with an answer. But you got Geist there, you got the Soliant guys there, you got the productive guys there, you got all these top tier people there, and no one had a really great answer for how to make the relational diagram work. And so instead of me saying it's easy, hard, or better, worse, whatever, I'm simply going to point out right here that we have a couple links. This file is available. Hopefully everyone's got it. What's easy and hard? I'm going to post it real quick. I'm going to cross post it. I don't know that this is easy or hard because it's really needs, I don't know how it could be made better. So therefore I'm inclined not to necessarily say it's hard. It just is. That's one of those areas that it just is. Now, if you're trying to learn it, you're like, this is hard. I get that. But objectively, after 30 years of looking at it, it just is. I don't know that you could make it easier because the human mind does relational design automatically on its own. But when you have to actually think about it and make associations between a person and an invoice and a product and an inventory item and a delivery and a tracking number, you have to like structure it out very logically. This process, these videos right here will help you with that. We talked about this not too long ago. Security encryption on the whole in the FileMaker platform, very, very easy to do. I think installing an SSL certificate is probably the hardest thing to do. But notwithstanding that little issue, you can follow a checklist to do that. We have some videos in here that talk about security, but at the end of the day, if you have a brand new beginning person and they need to lock everyone out and encrypt the file, they can do it. It's not that terribly hard. I would mark this as a easy to easy with a little effort kind of leverage. This was brought up, audit logs. Okay, the opposite. So security is one thing. Audit logs are kind of like a paper trail of what everyone's doing. This is the opposite of easy. This is super difficult. Now, once again, I say it's super difficult, and then everyone's going to go, I couldn't do that. Right? So here I can just hear the senior developers who walk in here late. I'm not saying that Kyle can't do it. The Kyles of the world, right? We have Karens of the world. They like do whatever. The Kyles of the world come to me and they go, I couldn't do that. And he can. Kyle's an awesome developer, but that's not what I'm talking about, right? I'm talking about the beginning people who've been using this for 6 months, a month to 6 months, maybe 12 months. And then somewhere, if you're really using it after 6 to 12 months, you're kind of in between beginner and intermediate, that intermediate stage. We talk about that conveniently in the book. This broadcast is brought to you by FMTraining.tv, where we make books and videos for you. Visit FMTraining.tv for your copy of the book. Anyway, so we talk about it in here. We even do little pictures for you, right? I draw little pictures. We have little art things in here, right? Everyone recognize the art? We see the art there. I even have it in a button I can press on the screen here. Watch this. Woo! There is the art. And so this is the brand new beginning developer right here. We talk about the intermediate, and so you're in here or you're in this range right here, okay? If you're over here, pretty much everything on this list you can do, but what it means is that you have to put more effort into doing it. Does that make sense? So it's you can do it. It's not necessarily hard, but it might be tedious and time consuming, okay? Very important concept, okay? So, yeah, notice how it shook the camera when I dropped this, right? Like, and the screen shakes. It's like 20 pounds of paper, right? So you can get a PDF version where we save a tree, but we do recycle these, right? So it's actually bigger. Every time we do it, it keeps getting bigger. Audit logs, not easy. Go check out these videos for that. And there's other videos here. These are just the ones that we came up with after about 2 or 3 hours of digging through our archives. We have tons and tons and tons of videos, but these are the most common ones. Deploying on an iPad or iPhone, use FileMaker Go, pretty easy for new developers, right? You have to get used to the screen real estate. We call it screen real estate, screen size, and the fact you have a big fat finger that you're pushing on stuff. So deploying to Android and to WebDirect. So this is one that Tawa brought up, okay? Most of the things on this list you can overcome by time and effort. However, and it's why at the end of the day, I really dislike WebDirect a lot. People get into WebDirect and they say, and so here's what happens with FileMaker Pro. Everyone gets used to this. Hey, here's FileMaker Pro. Can you connect it to an IoT device you hook it to a cow, and it milks the cow, tracks the data, does an IoT thing here, does a curl option here, talks to the server here, that communicates with Google and tells them that the milk is on the way. FileMaker can do that. There was that song, FileMaker could do that, right? And so people get used to that. So if they throw enough money at it or time at it, FileMaker Pro can do that. Then you get FileMaker WebDirect. And I don't know what to tell you, but there's not enough money in the world to make FileMaker WebDirect do what you want it to do on everything. If you use FileMaker WebDirect in a limited capacity, then you're okay. But as soon as you say, I want WebDirect to directly talk to pay, is happened the other day. One of my engineers is having all sorts of problems. I want to log in, and then it's going to use Active Directory to cross-reference to PayPal, and then it's going to do this other stuff, and then it's going to do this other stuff, and then it's going to do a chart for me, and then it's going to talk to IoT, and then it's going to milk the cow. It ain't going to get there. Every engineer I have, I have this engineer, and if he's here watching, then he knows I'm talking about him. I'm not going to mention his name. You get the idea that you run into these issues, and until you personally experience going to the customer, you have to hide your head in shame, and you go to the customer and go, yeah, remember that what you want to do? And I said you could do everything in WebDirect. I'm sorry, you actually can't do everything in WebDirect, and I was wrong. Okay, you want to have that conversation as long as WebDirect is kept on a very short leash. And what I mean by a short leash, I mean basic record finding, record editing, this and that. You can do some clever stuff with WebDirect with a plugin, like if you use Monkey Bread plugin, right? The Monkey Bread plugin, that's Christian Schmidt, right? He's there. So you put it on the FileMaker server, and then the WebDirect client can access that plugin and do some really amazing things. But there's only so much it can do. It can't do everything because there's limitations of physics, right? Because we're in a web browser. Web browser is not as powerful as FileMaker, the platform. So yeah. So Chris is here. Then Chris left. Welcome. You're glad you're here, Chris. And then Chris took off. But the short version is that Chris had a comment here about grouping labels would be nice and silly labels that they have. Yeah, so that's a CSS issue. They're playing with that, prototyping that, but there's a lot of things here that go on with the FileMaker platform that it does very, very well. We get used to them, and then some things it just doesn't do as well. So Android, okay? Once again, I'm not going to get into a conversation about Android because people talk about Android who haven't done it. If one of you want to shoot me a video and show me, take a solution from FileMaker, put it on Go and it works, and then take a FileMaker solution and put it on Android without using WebDirect. Someone show me how easy and cool that is. I've yet to actually see it. I know that LiveCode has been working on a version of that, but it's still kind of rather limited. And so, like, for example, my idea would be take FM Starting Point and have it work magically on Android without WebDirect, without a browser. No, they're not going to do that. The CRM's way too complicated for that. So a couple areas are really difficult to do. This is a broader one here. At some point, maybe this will get addressed. I think browsers will always be a little bit limited on that. So the goal is, if you want to not apologize to a customer, try to stay away from WebDirect if they have any sort of requirements that keep creeping. You build it for them, and then they say, oh, it'd be really great if it did this and this. And so just keep in mind that sooner or later with WebDirect, you're going to hit the wall with that. It happens to everyone. And if it hasn't happened to you, it's just a matter of time. So basic mechanical kind of things in the FileMaker platform. So FileMaker loves to display data vertically. List views down the page, portals down the page. It doesn't like to display things laterally sideways, right? And so it's important to understand that after 30 years, I am trained just to do things vertically. I don't do things sideways. If I did things sideways, then I would drive myself nuts with that. And so I've been reconditioned by the product to do things a certain way, because if you do it enough the same way, right, then you don't think about the other way. But part of this webinar today is to think about the stuff it doesn't really do. So portals that resize, portals that, well, they kind of resize, but the individual widths of them, and they don't display sideways. So there's a lot of limitations both on list view and on portals. Basically, they're vertical objects, not lateral objects. There are workarounds, once again, on this. Watch these videos right here. Okay, questions along the way, Margaret? It's pretty quiet. Hey, Timothy from Dublin, Ohio.
Yeah, I don't really see any questions at the moment. I've been looking. Um, oh, I meant the relationship graph, just an idea of improving, from Chris Venif on Twitch. I assume he's referring to the grouping and labeling.
Yeah, I
Uh,
don't know if he was talking about grouping and labeling on a layout or grouping and labeling on relationship graph. So I don't know. Oh, relationship graph. He's there. One of the areas that we run into all the time, FileMaker is really good at allowing you to build application with almost no experience whatsoever. And that is, it allows you to build a solution. You share it with 5 or 10 people. And then along the way, other people see it and you want to share it with more people. And you get into this performance issue. So Megan is kind of at this stage in life. She's with Megan's one of the people here on Discord, and she works where she shot some videos for us, things like that, which we're working on. But she has she's over here. She might surface, but she's at the stage where she's probably in that intermediate stage, and she's got some more senior people looking over her, so she probably won't get in trouble. But she's at that stage where she builds something really amazing, and people want to share it. They put it up on a server on the cloud, and suddenly the performance starts to take a dive a little bit, right? And so the issue is that can be an issue. It can be intimidating or hard for people to want to deal with the issue. It's a little time consuming, a little tedious, but once you start to understand how to build things in an efficient way, then you'll find that FileMaker scales very, very well. So there's scalability between basically brand new user and intermediate developers. Kind of Megan's in this area somewhere in here, right? And you're starting to run into performance issues. And then there is the I'm a senior ninja and I want to go beyond senior ninja and I want to deploy the solution to literally potentially 1,000 simultaneous users or something like that. So if you come to the next group, we're talking about scalability above, and I don't really give you a number, above 300 to 400 simultaneous users. This gets into an issue. Claris has made some improvements to the FileMaker server product with 19.2.1. They continue to improve it. And then if you replicate servers, you have FileMaker server, say in the United States, on the West Coast, you have one on the East Coast, you have one in Europe, say somewhere, one in India, one in Japan, one in China, for example. Then you can synchronize and have that server data replicate. So if you go into a contact record and you edit something within 5, 10, 20, 30 seconds, that data has been pushed to all the other servers for that same record in all the other geographical locations, right? Makes sense. So that is server replication. We cover that in these videos right here. That was a ton of fun. We did that with 360 Works. Some of the most amazing, eye-opening fun we've ever done. And everyone was blown away. It worked really well. So Addons are the new hotness. I can tell Margaret wrote that. I would never say the new hotness.
Sorry.
Smoking hot, right? So yeah, so building your own add-ons. Using add-ons is one thing. Building your own add-ons is a little bit harder. I don't really consider this a limitation. It's like building a bundle of code, but it's good to point out that it's a little bit harder to build as opposed to just a drag and drop, which is pretty easy. So and then another one came up. It was funny because we were talking to, I guess, an intern at Claris, and they were like, well, yeah, it's really hard to build a really beautiful application in FileMaker. I'm like, not if you watch Nick Hunter. And she's like, what? Right? So we had to explain to Claris that we do these live streams. Psst, hey, we do live streams. Psst, yeah, and they're really amazing. Psst, and some of them actually show you how to make amazing interfaces. Psst. They're like, really? I'm like, yeah, didn't you know that? We're on TV every day at 1 o'clock. So anyway, kind of a funny conversation. This are the 10 days of neomorphism that the public had access to. There's actually another 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours behind this, but that's paid access. I'm not going to put the links in there for that unless someone wants to write a check for that. But yeah. And Chris is back again. Chris left and then he came back again. So yeah, so I mean, I'm kind of buzzing through this list, which means that tomorrow is kind of might end up being game show day, because we're kind of chewing through this list pretty fast. I may have to call Brian for an emergency game show tomorrow. So, barcoding, pretty easy these days. Used to be a little bit more work. You had to install a font, do this, do that. Barcoding now is pretty straightforward. We have a couple videos on it. I would consider it, in the scheme of things, fairly easy. Button bars, once again, it's a control style. It's a it's a control style merged with a button, right? A field and a control style merged together. So we have some, so we talk about this on these days right here. Accordion objects, I didn't bother with this. Nick talks about these all the time. Accordion objects, once again, it's another kind of object that doesn't exist in the FileMaker platform, but it's pretty standard in a lot of other systems. And so Nick, once again, along with like a bunch of third-party developers, create plugins and samples and things like that to get around the limitations in the platform. Why are there limitations? Because people use a platform. It's the #1 low-code platform, period, right? If you go to low-code wiki and you low-code, if you go to wiki and you type in low-code, you type in and you look at their list, FileMaker, they don't even consider FileMaker low code, right? Because it's been around so long, people like lose sight of it. They're only looking for the startup companies, that are, because people are creating startups trying to not necessarily create an ecosystem with value. They're just trying to get enough runway and get airborne long enough so someone buys them out before they go out of business, right? So that's kind of a funny thing. I was surprised they weren't in there, but then if you think about it, they've been around so long, people are like, FileMaker, it's so old. Except that we still use it, and it kicks every day. FileMaker's kicking across the world, right? I can't wait till someone puts FileMaker, takes it to Mars. Elon Musk said, yeah, there's going to be some FileMaker developers on Mars. They're probably going to die, right, is what he said. And he goes, yeah, it's probably bad. So only volunteers. But I can't wait till we have FileMaker on Mars, because then we can say it's the low-code platform on Mars. It'll be awesome. Cool. So text wrap is kind of another one that popped up. Someone suggested this and asked about this. And then so on a piece of paper, on a newspaper, like the column issue. If you solve the column issue, you could solve this text wrap issue. It's where the text kind of wraps around, you go to Microsoft Word, you put an image in, you right click on the image, and you say wrap text square, something like that. And so it takes the text and it wraps it around the side and bottom and auto formats it. That doesn't exist in FileMaker. It's one of those things that wasn't important enough at the time. They would have resolved this probably 20 years ago, and they didn't really do it. And so as a result, it never got done. And then people kind of like forgot that text wrapping was a thing, right? So you can kind of hack it. You could do it with WebViewer. Kyle's pulling in the Kyle's talking about web viewers and accordions, but web viewers are basically web pages that, for the most part, and most of our demos are powered by JavaScript, some sort of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And you can compensate for a lot of this stuff there, but a web viewer is coding, and that coding ain't simple. So once again, if you follow the rules that I say, I'm not saying that Kyle can't do it with JavaScript and web viewers. I'm just saying that a beginner can't do it. I don't expect a beginner to sit there and code anything, okay? A beginner is going to drag and drop and recycle stuff. Makes sense? So once again, you can get there, and a lot of these videos in here are how to get there with a little bit more advanced techniques, right? This one I always put in. So we're going to be talking about containers next week. I'm pretty sure next week is a container conversation. We're going to be talking about containers. But FileMaker containers at their very basic level are just storage of a file, okay? It's not interaction with the file. It's none of that. You're like, well, I can make the movie play on FileMaker Go, right? If you have Go with a certain version, and then the file format's a certain thing. So basically what Claris has done, they store the file, and then whatever access you have is limited to what the operating system provides on its own. Claris didn't build anything there for you. So realistically, they did some stuff in FileMaker Go, some precision movie control, stuff like that, but only for FileMaker Go. And I'm still not quite sure why they ever did that, because me and all the other senior developers who said, unless you're going to do it cross-platform, make it work on Windows and Mac and iOS and all of it, don't do it, right? It has to be kind of universal. And so they built a lot of little one-off things where it does a certain thing on, it behaves a certain way on Go, it doesn't do anything on Pro, just kind of goofy stuff like that. And then of course we have the whole Android conversation, and if you put Android in there, then what's it can do? It'll do something totally different on top of that. So container management is kind of a hack. We can reliably pop them open and view them, and by the operating system popping it open and viewing it. We script that. JavaScript is where it comes in, where you can do a lot of cool things with containers, especially images. You can, this is one did right here, where we actually can pop open an image and you can crop it and then save the cropped image to a different container. Super, super, super useful and amazing. Totally free. Totally free. Totally free. So, Alex F. suggested word wrap. Once again, a little bit out of context. I'm not sure where that came in, but
Talking about the text to auto wrap section. You mentioned someone had brought it up and you weren't sure who. I guess that's Alex F, whoever that is.
Yeah. I mean, once again, it's the web viewer. Web viewers can compensate for so a web viewer is this idea of, I mean, if I click the link here, let me see if I click this link, what happens? It brings up the video probably, and I can scroll down here. Oh, who is that person? I can't imagine who that is. And then if I scroll down here, does it not going to scroll? Oh, it's in this right here. Nice. I'm trying to do is figure out where the sample files show more. Here we go. And then here is the
image cropping sample file.
Image, that's one right here. And so it's going to download that, and download that, and then download that, and download that, and download that. Save the file, close that, close that. Yep, here's the image cropper. So this is the kind of stuff we're talking about. So if I open this up in FileMaker, here's the image cropper, okay? Now, this is JavaScript, and I'm not talking about a little JavaScript. It's a lot of code. But by using a web viewer, you can say, let's crop the image, and I can decide if I want to crop the image. Now, I'm restricted with a ratio here of 1:1. It's set that way, but I've gone in here myself and changed the code, so you could grab the handle here and resize it to whatever dimension, laterally or just unrestricted, right? Right now, it's set to be a 1:1. So say that I really like the cat's head. It's really limited. And then I said save. It extracts it out, and then there's the cat's head right there, right? So that's a web viewer. So it's something easy to use, but to write the code yourself is going to be very, very difficult. So you have to be a serious programmer to do that. Once again, dragging and dropping this and putting it in your solution, probably be okay trying to borrow the technique, get a sample file, steal the technique, put it in your file, hijack the technique, put it in your file. Anyone who builds a sample file should pretty much expect that someone's going to grab it and try to load it in their own solution for whatever project they're working on. The image cropper here is great. If you look at where this comes from, it's a Japanese company here. A third of the FileMaker developers in the world and users of the world, not necessarily developers, but users in the world, licensed sales in the world are Japanese. Very, very organized. I'm greatly impressed by the stuff they do, very much so. And so the JavaScript is written by another person. It's called, if you go here, it's called jQuery. Well, that's jQuery, but the right down here is the jcrop, right? So if I copy that, I come over to my browser, I paste it in. This is the code that someone else wrote over here, right? So I'm not sure if I can click in here or look at this. CSS, JS. There's all this code in here that goes in there, and that's just one little section of it, right? There's piles and piles and piles and piles of it. So someone else already wrote it. We took it, recycled it, put it in a web viewer, and get the drag and drop in the FileMaker. So you can do a lot with FileMaker not being a programmer. Once again, drag and drop. You just have to get good at hijacking and borrowing add-ons or borrowing solutions from someone else. So a FileMaker person saw this and said, oh, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all that code and build it in so we have that access in the FileMaker platform. If that makes sense. So, yeah. I don't know how to navigate out of here. There you go. So they took all that code and built a FileMaker interface for it, and FileMaker runs it. It's really great. If you have questions or comments about things that you're stuck on, you're not sure what to do, I really encourage you. I say this, and I get very few emails. It's like people are afraid of me, right? I don't bite, and I'm not going to charge you anything. So what do you have to lose, right? So support at rcconsulting.com. It goes to the tech support team. They'll look at it, and then they'll triage that message, and it'll get marked for me for the live stream. And so we can bring the topic back tomorrow if it fits in. For those of you who saw the game show at the beginning with the Jackbox stuff, really funny stuff. I think we could have a lot of fun with that. I'll have to invite some of the people tomorrow. So, and then of course you got Christian Schmidt at Monkey Bread. So if you have any questions about one of our preferred vendors, I'm not a big fan of plugins in general. I do make certain exceptions. The Monkey Bread plugin, my team uses it like crack. Also, my team uses a lot of the Clip Manager, which is the MyFM Butler stuff, which I got a notification they're discontinuing that, which was really interesting. So I'm not sure why that got discontinued, but there you go. Well, Margaret?
Oh, I was about to ask, did we discuss timers? That was like briefly.
Yeah,
the concept of
I'm not going to
yeah.
go back at this point. We're landing the plane. You're like saying, "This is your captain. Will be landing in 5 minutes," and then the airline steward person runs out and says, "Would anyone
Yeah.
like a 12-course meal here in the next 4.5 minutes?" So yeah, no.
Sorry.
Yeah, negative. Negative, stewardess. Steward, please return to your seat. Put your seatbelt on. So yeah. So Agent Chevy, any questions? Art, Ken, you folks? I mean, Kyle obviously is an awesome developer and can do all this. Once again, so we'll have to do on-timer scripts move tomorrow, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I could talk about Agent Chevy. You're the one having problems with on-timer scripts, so
Yeah, they were.
he was. He, she,
Yes.
she. I don't even know who Agent Chevy is. I remember you probably told me once, but now I forget. So there's a lot of names that get thrown at me, like enigmatic Schwarup. So real quick. So the on-timer scripts are interesting. You set them; they're very invisible. The problem with on-timer scripts is there's no visibility to them at all. I'm not talking about the add-on plugin the add-on where you drag the add-on on and it has a timer, right? Like if I'm in 19 here, I go in here and I say, oh, I want a new layout and I'm going to have a new layout and it'll be and then I want to do an add-on and like, oh, let's do an add-on. I'm going to add an add-on. All right, where's my timer? There's a timer in here, right? And he's like, oh, let's get a timer. And then you drag the timer in here, right? And then you have a browse mode, and then you have a timer, and then it starts going, and then this, right? So that's neat. That's drag and drop, but to customize it, you're going to have to do some coding to it. This is a new thing with 19. It's once again a web viewer. It's like the J-crop. You saw the J-crop for cropping images. Same technology. This right here, if I double click it, is a web viewer setup right here. So that's what that is. So, but the built-in script, there's a script step called, if I move myself over here out of the way a little bit, I might create a script. I'll just call it timer. You can do a timer. If I click over here, I go, I think it's install on timer script, right? Install on timer script, kind of weird. And what it does is that you're going to tell it to run a script, like it'll close the file, right? How about that, right? And then you set a delay on it of, say, 30 seconds. And this is in seconds, by the way, right? And say you say 30 seconds or something, whatever like that. And so that's it. It's all set. When I tell this to run, say that it's a script, we tell it to run. I save it. I tell it to run. There's no way of knowing that it's going. You have no way of knowing it's attached to this window. An on-timer is attached to the window it's on. I can install more than one on-timer. And what happens, it will fire if FileMaker is not busy doing anything, right? So if I start this running right here, the web viewer is doing stuff, but FileMaker is pretty quiet. My guess is in about 15 seconds or so, it will shut this off. It'll just close this file if I did it correctly. Oh, see, there it goes, right? So it just self-destructed, right? So I just did that. So you will see it if the debugger is open. So if we happen to go to the script debugger, okay, I'm gonna run this again. So I'm gonna close this. I'm gonna close that. I'm gonna go over here. I'm gonna open this up, and I'm going to show that. I'm gonna go to let's go to this one right here. Oh, not that timer. Timer sample data layout 4. Here we go. So I'm going to start this right here. Doesn't really matter. I'm going to go script debugger. Okay. And I come over here and I click over here and I say, I want to run this script right here. I say run. Okay. And and you tell it to run. Okay. Okay. Here's my problem. Okay. Whoever said you can see it in the debugger, Kyle? No, you can't. Okay, Kyle. Hello, Kyle. Smack, 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 smack. Where does it show the timer is running over here? Maybe if you could show me this, I would be loving. It shows it when it fires. Yeah, okay. That's like saying, hey, the nuclear bomb's going to go off, but when it goes off, you're dead. Okay? We need to know what's running. Once again, it's an invisible process. You can't see it. It's running here. There's a bomb set to go off. Now it just fired. It's only coming up here to alert me that it's going to try to run this script. Normally, you'd never have this open, and it would just run and close, right? See, that's the problem. It's invisible. So Kyle just picking stuff to argue with me just because he likes to do that, okay? But I'm actually smart enough to know when he's messing with me, okay? the on-script timers are totally invisible. It's a certification test question, Kyle. We don't want to get into that, do we? The point is that there are a number of questions in the certification test. It says, if you have a window and you have a timer that's set to beep, and then you have it beep twice, and then you duplicate the window twice and you rename the window, and then close one window, how many beeps will you get? Okay. Well, if you know how it works just fine. But it's the problem. It's invisible. So they're testing your ability to do the math in your head. Okay, 2 times 3 is 6, but he renames it, but that doesn't have a factor on it. So then, if you close one, you'll be down to 4, and then so it'll run those 4 beeps if another script isn't busily processing at the time. So that's the answer to the test question. So it's kind of a hack. Why is Agent Chevy confused? Because it's confusing. When I learned it, and I really learned it, was like FileMaker 7, 8, 9, 10, somewhere 12 in there somewhere. I was kind of into the advanced, going on beyond advanced mode. Now I just have a hard time keeping up with the advanced people because most of the time I sit here talking to other people and answering questions. But yeah, this is one of those things that's totally invisible, and you have no way of really knowing that it's dead unless you really knowing it's dead unless you close the window and create a new window. Duplicating the window duplicates the timer. That's the thing. So it's like someone runs up and attaches a little bomb to the side of the window. You can't see it. It's over here on the side. It's going right? And you duplicate it, you get the bomb with it, right? That kind of thing, right? So there we go. So yeah, so now what would be really great, which is really difficult to do, is a on idle timer. Now there is a hack that you can do. I consider it a hack because you have to set it on a privilege set, and then you have to go to the server and set it to. It's a real, for something as simple as it is, FileMaker should pretty much know. Like if the computer can tell you when to fire a screensaver, it could pretty much tell if you're not busy at the keyboard doing stuff and the script's not running, right? Makes sense. And so it'd be really great if after 5 minutes it would just disconnect, right? Or you'd run a script that it could do. So after 5 minutes of idle, okay, they have never dealt with that. I have no idea why. I can't imagine people. It's one of those things like custom menus. People give up after a while, right? So you just go with what you've got. So
you got a question from
so when on timers duplicate, is it duplicated with the same number of seconds? Yeah, no, because the window's fresh, it starts fresh. So it doesn't continue from that time point forward. It starts. So then instead of having 4 scripts that all fire at this side. So if you have it 2 on the script, you have beep beep, and then after say 60 seconds of beep beep. Then after a minute or 2 or whatever, you duplicate again, then delete one. You're going to have 2 beep, 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 and then there'll be some sort of delay, and then it'll beep, beep again. And they'll be going back and forth, beep, 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 right? So
Mr. Schmitz brought up something, schedule.start script on idle in the...
So the Monkey Bread guy is liking to me to remember. But Monkey Bread guy has, okay, so this is really great. So Christian Schmidt, I have no idea what you're talking about, right? I think he's being cute when he mentions this. So Monkey Bread guy who has this plugin, he see this little line of code right here, wherever that went, where'd that go? Right here. It's right here. He has this line of code right here, okay? He has like 6,000 of these lines of code that you can call. I don't have them memorized at all, right? So I couldn't tell you if that is. He asks a question like, is it in the product? Is it not in the product? It's like, don't forget about my product, which does this. Yes, I'm sure it does that. I have no idea. I think the product's fine, but I couldn't tell you that it's in there. So Christian Schmidt, because you know what the 6,000 functions are, doesn't mean that anyone else on the planet has it memorized. You have it memorized. Maybe the people who work for you have it memorized. No one else in the world has it memorized, Christian Schmidt. Okay. So you have to come here and tell us if it's in there. So yeah, there's a schedule start script on idle. So that would be really cool on idle. So that's another reason to use the plugin. See here, there he goes. Margaret just found it. How'd you find that, Margaret? You're so smart.
Googling, a lot of Googling.
Oh, what's that acronym? Just blanking Google it. So here it is. Script startup on idle. Script runs after idle period. Holy shit. It's amazing. Everyone, I appreciate it. Back tomorrow. We're going to be playing a game show. It's going to be awesome. It's called Jackbox, and we're going to be discussing the FileMaker platform and a game show format. I'm going to invite some of the other CEOs to show up. It should be fun. I'm going to ask that no one comments on Claris, the company. Right? It'll only be about
We're going to have to, like,
that will be
fix
the
those
rule.
questions a bit.
Okay? That's it. All right, folks. See ya.
Bye.
And the guys just stepped up the whole way. Calm, cool, collected. The quarterback, great read, good patience. More importantly, great job up front protecting this quarterback to give you a chance. And that's all you can ask for.
Try to rally down 10. 9:25 to go here in the fourth. Short motion by Amendola from the left. Brady takes the shotgun snap, stands in, throws it left for Amendola, reaches up and starts a high throw and lands inside the 10, rolling to the 9. Ball slightly behind him, again he makes the grab.